Ladies and gentlemen, failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of it. God said, I make the weak strong. When you're rejected, laughed at, or doubted, remember what Einstein taught. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Don't fear failure, embrace it. Every mistake is your tuition. Success isn't built on comfort, it's built on setbacks. If life knocks you down 9 times, stand up 10. That's how you beat failure, by refusing to let it beat you. Failure is a teacher, not a tombstone. Most people are conditioned to fear failure from a young age. We're taught that mistakes are something to be ashamed of, something that marks us as not good enough. In school, failure means a low grade. In life, failure is often seen as a sign to stop trying. But the truth is, failure is one of life's greatest instructors. It doesn't end the story, it shapes it. Every failure carries a lesson, a message, a mirror that shows you what needs to change, what needs to grow, and what direction you should take next. It is not a sign that you're finished, it's a sign that you're in the process of becoming. When you fail, it often feels like a dead end. The dream didn't work, the effort didn't pay off, and the door slammed shut. But that's not the end, that's the test. It's life asking you how much you really want it. Failure separates the curious from the committed. Anyone can be excited when things go well, but only those who treat failure as part of the process will keep moving forward when things fall apart. Those are the people who build something real. Think about a baby learning to walk. They fall hundreds of times, and yet not once do they think, maybe walking isn't for me. They don't overanalyze, they don't spiral into self-doubt, they just get up and try again. That's how humans are wired to learn. Failure is built into the learning curve. Somewhere along the way, adults forget that. They begin to fear falling down so much that they stop trying to walk new paths. But those who understand that failure is a teacher keep learning long after others have stopped. Failure reveals the gaps in your preparation, your mindset, or your skills. It points out what you missed, not to shame you, but to help you improve. If you listen to what failure is trying to teach you, you can come back stronger, wiser, and better equipped. Some lessons can only be learned through personal experience, not through theory. Reading about a challenge and facing that challenge are two very different things. Failure brings the theory into real life, and that's when true understanding begins. Some people treat failure like a verdict. They see it as proof that they're not good enough, smart enough, or talented enough. But failure is never final unless you stop trying. What really defines you is how you respond to it. You can let it break you, or you can let it build you. The choice is always yours. People who succeed in any field are often those who failed the most, but kept going. They didn't allow one bad outcome to shape their entire identity. They knew the difference between an event and a definition. When you treat failure like a tombstone, you bury your potential with it. You stop taking risks. You lower your goals. You shrink from opportunities. But when you treat it like a teacher, you approach life with curiosity. You become more open to feedback. You become less afraid of looking foolish. And most importantly, you keep showing up. That's where growth lies, not in perfection, but in repetition, in persistence, in trying again and again with a smarter approach. Success stories often skip over the failures, but if you look closely, failure is always in the foundation. The business that went bankrupt before the next one succeeded. The invention that failed before the breakthrough. The audition that flopped before the starring role. What made the difference wasn't luck, it was the willingness to learn, adapt, and persist. Success is not built in spite of failure, it's built through it. Failure also teaches you humility. It reminds you that you're not invincible, that there's always room to grow, always more to learn. That humility keeps you grounded. It makes you a better leader, a better teammate, a better learner. When you failed, you don't mock others who are struggling. You understand them. You know the feeling, and that empathy becomes a strength. Humility opens your mind to new ways of thinking, and that openness is often the doorway to creative breakthroughs. Every successful person has a library of failures behind them. Each one of those failures taught them something critical, something they couldn't have discovered by winning all the time. Comfort doesn't create innovation. Struggle does. Discomfort sharpens focus, forces adaptation, and pushes boundaries. The obstacle becomes the advantage when you look at it through the lens of learning. That's how failure transforms from a weight into a tool. Most people quit too early because they misunderstand failure. They think it means stop, but often failure is just saying not this way. It's feedback. It's data. It's trying to steer you towards something better. But if your ego is too bruised, you won't hear the lesson. You'll walk away bitter instead of better. The ones who rise again are those who stay curious. They ask, what is this teaching me? What can I do differently next time? That mindset turns failure into progress. The world is full of people who gave up after their first setback. People who let one not decide their future. But history remembers those who kept going. The ones who failed forward, who turned every rejection into redirection, who refused to let a single outcome define their entire journey. They learned that failure wasn't the end, it was just a rough draft, a draft that could be rewritten, refined, and reshaped with every new attempt. When you fail, your mind starts telling you stories. That you're not cut out for this, that you're wasting your time, that you should have chosen something easier. But those voices are just fear in disguise. They're trying to keep you safe, not successful. You have to learn to ignore them, or better yet, talk back. Remind yourself that every person who achieved anything meaningful once stood exactly where you are, confused, hurt, doubting, but still trying. If you want to grow, if you want to lead, if you want to build something that lasts, you have to get comfortable with failing. You have to be willing to look foolish, to be underestimated, to be misunderstood. That's the price of greatness. The sooner you embrace it, the faster you evolve. Life doesn't reward the most cautious. It rewards the most committed. And commitment means staying with it even when it hurts, even when it fails, even when it feels like nothing is working. Your failures are your proof that you tried, that you stepped outside your comfort zone, that you aim for something bigger than safety. That alone sets you apart from those who never tried at all. Most people settle, they choose comfort over growth. But if you're failing, it means you're moving. It means you're alive. It means you still believe that something better is possible. Failure is not the tombstone of your dream. It is the blueprint, it's the page you underline and come back to again and again until you master it. The mistakes you make now will become the wisdom you share later. The setbacks you face today will become the strength you carry tomorrow. The hardest chapters will one day become the most powerful parts of your story. Rejection builds your inner strength in ways that comfort never could. Most people fear rejection because it feels like failure, a personal blow to your worth. But rejection is actually a tool for growth, a process that, when embraced, transforms weakness into resilience. It tests not just your ideas or your efforts, but your mindset and your emotional endurance. Rejection forces you to examine what you're made of. It asks whether your confidence is rooted in validation from others or in your own belief in yourself. That's where inner strength begins to take shape, not when everything goes right, but when everything doesn't. When someone tells you no, when they don't return your call, when your proposal is turned down, when your dream is laughed at, you're standing at a moment of choice. You can collapse inward and believe that you're not enough. Or you can stand taller and see it as a challenge to keep going. That decision, repeated over and over again, is how people build the kind of strength that can't be shaken by outside opinions. Rejection teaches you how to withstand discomfort. It shows you that disappointment doesn't kill you. It stings, but it doesn't end you. And the more you face it, the more you understand that the sting fades, but the strength remains. Rejection strips away the illusion that success is easy. It reminds you that every great achievement is built on persistence, on showing up even when the odds are low, on continuing after being told no again and again. This is something that every successful person understands. They weren't immune to rejection. They just didn't let it stop them. They kept refining their approach, kept learning, kept pushing. Each rejection became another rep in the gym of life, building the emotional and mental muscle needed to carry big dreams. Inner strength is not something you're born with. It's something you earn, and rejection is one of the fastest ways to earn it. When you're constantly accepted, constantly praised, it feels good, but it doesn't stretch you. You don't learn much from yes. You learn from no. You learn from the silence after you try something bold and no one responds. You learn from the feedback that hurts. That discomfort is where growth lies. Each time you're rejected, you have the chance to develop patience, discipline, self-awareness, and emotional control. Those qualities are more valuable than approval because they stay with you regardless of circumstance. Approval can be taken away. Inner strength cannot. Rejection is also a teacher of focus. When your efforts don't get the results you want, you're forced to look closely at what went wrong. Was your message clear? Was your timing right? Were you offering value or just asking for validation? Rejection makes you sharpen your thinking. It forces you to stop guessing and start observing. That awareness builds clarity, and clarity builds power. You begin to understand not just what didn't work, but why. That insight becomes the foundation of your future success. Over time, rejection also redefines your relationship with risk. When you survive rejection, you realize that fear loses its grip on you. You become more daring, more willing to speak up, try new things, and stretch beyond what feels safe. Rejection builds a kind of courage that comfort can't. It teaches you that the worst case scenario often isn't that bad, and even when it is, you have what it takes to handle it. That realization is freedom. It allows you to chase bigger dreams without being paralyzed by the fear of failure or judgment. One of the most overlooked effects of rejection is how it sharpens your purpose. Every no that stings forces you to ask, why am I doing this? If your answer isn't strong enough, you might give up. But if your answer comes from something deep inside, you become unstoppable. Rejection filters out the people who are only half committed. It leaves behind those who are driven by something bigger than applause. Those who stay in the game after rejection are the ones who believe in their mission more than they believe in other people's opinions. That belief, once forged through trials, is unbreakable. Rejection also humbles you. It reminds you that you're not entitled to success, not even if you work hard. That humility is crucial because it keeps you grounded, keeps you learning, keeps you listening. People who never face rejection often develop fragile egos. They rely on constant praise to feel okay. But those who face rejection and still move forward develop real confidence. The kind that doesn't need to be fed by others. The kind that stands on its own, quietly powerful, and rooted in effort, not ego. There's another hidden benefit to rejection. It builds empathy. When you've been turned down, overlooked, or dismissed, you become more understanding toward others who face the same. You're less likely to judge, more likely to uplift. That kind of leadership, built on shared struggle, connects you to people in a deeper way. It makes you a better partner, a better mentor, a better human. Inner strength is not just about standing alone. It's about standing with others, especially when they've fallen. Rejection also helps you become more resourceful. When one door closes, you're forced to find another way in. You get creative. You learn to pivot, to adjust, to innovate. Some of the most brilliant ideas were born from blocked paths. The original plan didn't work, so something better had to be created. Rejection pushes you out of autopilot and into problem-solving mode. It wakes up the part of your mind that says, there has to be a way, and keeps going until it finds one. That mental flexibility is part of inner strength too. Every time you are rejected and you choose to keep going, you send a message to yourself. A message that says, I believe in me. That message, repeated enough times, becomes the voice that silences doubt. It becomes the anchor that keeps you steady when the world gets noisy. Rejection doesn't destroy confidence. It reveals where it's shallow and gives you a chance to deepen it. It helps you build confidence that's earned, not given. And that kind of confidence stays with you through every season. Even in moments when rejection feels deeply personal, when it makes you question everything, it still carries the potential for transformation. Sometimes being rejected is not about you being wrong, it's about you not being in the right place yet. It's about timing, alignment, and perspective. You can't always control how people respond to you, but you can always control how you respond to them. That power is what builds your character. It gives you the ability to stay true to your vision even when others can't see it yet. Rejection isn't just something to tolerate, it's something to respect. It's a powerful force for shaping who you are and what you're capable of. The ones who embrace it, study it, and grow from it are the ones who rise. Not because they were lucky, but because they were willing to face the fire and let it forge them into something stronger. Inner strength is not found in ease. It is revealed through resistance. Rejection is one of life's greatest forms of resistance. And when you lean into it, you begin to uncover the depths of what you can endure and achieve. Persistence outperforms talent over time because consistency builds results in a way that raw ability cannot. Talent is a starting point, not a destination. Many people have natural gifts, intelligence, charisma, creativity, technical skills, but without the discipline to keep going when progress is slow or invisible, those gifts often go unused. Persistence is what activates talent. It's the daily choice to show up, to improve by 1%, to try again after failing, to focus when you're tired, and to believe in your direction even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. That is where real growth happens, and over time, the compounding effect of small, consistent actions outpaces the quick wins of early talent. People often admire the success of others and assume it came easily because of talent. What they don't see is the grind behind the scenes, the hours of repetition, the setbacks, the boring days, the unseen effort. Persistence is quiet. It doesn't brag, it doesn't shine right away, but it lays a foundation that becomes unshakable. While talent can impress in the short term, persistence creates longevity. It carries you through the phases where nothing seems to be working. It holds you together when motivation fades. Motivation is emotional. Persistence is a decision in school, in business, in sports, in relationships. Those who persist are often the ones who win. Not because they never failed, but because they never stayed down. Every time they fell, they got up and learned. That accumulation of learning becomes a superpower. They may not have started as the best, but they grow into excellence. And in the process, they develop something even more valuable than skill. They build character. Character is forged in the fire of repetition, in the face of rejection, in the hours no one is watching. That's what persistence creates. It shapes not just what you do, but who you are. There are countless stories of individuals who were told they weren't good enough, weren't talented enough, weren't special enough, and yet they made it because they refused to quit. They outlasted the doubt. They kept moving forward while others stopped. That's the secret advantage of persistence. It's not about being the fastest or the smartest. It's about staying in the race when others drop out. The longer you stay in the game, the more opportunities you create for yourself. Timing, connections, breakthroughs, they all happen over time, and time rewards those who remain. Persistence is not glamorous. It often feels repetitive, unrecognized, and slow, but it creates momentum. Every small effort builds on the last. Like drops of water carving a canyon, the impact may be invisible at first, but over time it shapes everything. The person who trains every day, even when it's raining, even when no one's watching, becomes unbeatable. Not because they're naturally better, but because they've trained themselves to be relentless. That edge can't be taught in a classroom or found in a book. It comes from doing the work every day. Without fail, another power of persistence is that it rewires your relationship with failure. When you persist, you begin to see failure not as the end, but as feedback. It becomes part of the process. Every failed attempt teaches you something new. You refine, you adjust, and you grow. Over time, you develop a mindset that sees obstacles as puzzles, not barriers. That kind of mental toughness is rare, and it's what sets persistent people apart. They're not shaken by one bad day, or one bad month, or even one bad year. They've learned how to keep going despite emotions, setbacks, or lack of external validation. Talent can open doors, but persistence is what keeps them open. In any field, you'll find talented people who never realized their potential because they didn't stick with it. They got bored, distracted, or discouraged. Persistence, on the other hand, breeds mastery. The more you repeat something with intention, the more refined your skills become. You begin to notice details others miss. You gain insights that shortcuts never reveal. You earn your expertise through time and dedication, and that kind of expertise can't be easily replaced even when it comes to relationships and leadership. Persistence plays a key role. Showing up consistently, doing what you say you'll do, being reliable even when it's hard, these are not flashy traits, but they earn trust. People may admire talent, but they depend on consistency. They follow those who lead with persistence. That's why persistent people often rise to positions of influence, not because they demand it, but because they earn it over time through resilience and dependability. One of the myths about success is that it's about brilliance. But in reality, many breakthroughs come from people who just kept trying when others stopped. They wrote one more book, sent one more email, practiced one more hour. It's not the big moves that change everything, it's the small ones done repeatedly. That's the compound effect of persistence. Like planting seeds, each action may look small, but together they create a harvest. You don't always see the results immediately, but that doesn't mean the process isn't working. Patience and persistence walk hand in hand. The world is full of distractions and quick rewards, and that makes persistence even more valuable. In a culture of instant gratification, the ability to delay reward and stay focused on the long-term goal becomes a superpower. Persistence helps you resist the temptation to give up too soon. It trains you to stay steady when others are chasing trends. Over time, that focus creates depth. You don't just touch the surface of your craft, you dive into the layers, you explore the complexity, and that's where the real value is created. There's also something deeply personal about persistence. It becomes part of your identity. When you persist through difficult seasons, you gain confidence, not the kind that depends on external praise, but the kind that comes from knowing you didn't give up. That confidence fuels your future efforts. It tells you that you can handle hard things, that you've been through fire and kept moving. That internal strength becomes your foundation. You stop comparing yourself to others because you know your journey is built on something real. Persistence doesn't mean being stubborn without direction. It means adapting, learning, evolving, but never quitting. It's about showing up again and again with renewed effort and refined strategy. It's the ability to take a punch and still move forward. To be told no and still knock on the next door. To have a dream, lose it, and still dare to rebuild it. That kind of spirit doesn't fade. It grows stronger with every test. It becomes a force that others can feel, and it influences everyone around you. The most fulfilling victories often come not to the most gifted, but to the most determined. The person who was willing to put in the time, make the mistakes, face the doubt, and keep walking anyway. Persistence is the bridge between dreaming and doing. It turns potential into reality. It builds things that last. It makes you unshakable. Talent might get you noticed, but persistence gets you remembered. Over time, the world doesn't reward just who started fast. It rewards who finished strong. And finishing strong is a habit, not a moment. That habit is built one day, one step, one decision at a time through the power of persistence. Failure is a better teacher than success because it tells you the truth. When you succeed, people applaud you, they compliment you, they celebrate you. But they rarely tell you what you did wrong. Success can blind you, making you believe everything you did was perfect. It feeds the ego and makes you comfortable. But failure strips all that away. It is raw. It exposes your mistakes. It shows you the flaws in your thinking, in your strategy, in your timing, and in your execution. It doesn't care about your feelings. It reflects back to you exactly what went wrong. And in that reflection is your opportunity to learn more than success ever could teach you. Failure humbles you. It reminds you that you don't know everything. It brings you face to face with reality. You're forced to ask questions you wouldn't have asked if things had gone smoothly. What did I miss? Where did I go wrong? How can I do better next time? Those questions are the foundation of growth. They force you to confront the limits of your ability, your mindset, and your habits. And when you answer them honestly, you begin to evolve. You become sharper, wiser, and more resilient. You begin to separate your worth from your outcomes and learn how to become better, not just feel better. Success often makes people complacent. Once they achieve something, they want to stay in the comfort zone that success has created. They start avoiding risks. They stop experimenting. They stick to what's safe. But failure shakes you out of that comfort. It demands that you grow. It demands that you adapt. It keeps you hungry. When you fail, you're forced to try new things, to change your approach, to look at your problems from different angles. That mental flexibility is essential for long-term success. People who only succeed rarely develop it. People who fail and come back stronger carry it like armor. Failure teaches patience. In a world that wants everything fast, failure slows you down and reminds you that greatness takes time. It makes you realize that mastery is not a straight path. It's a spiral. You move forward, then backward, then forward again, learning a bit more each time. You begin to understand that setbacks aren't signs to stop. They're signals to pay attention. You learn to trust the process. You learn to build endurance, the kind of endurance that allows you to keep going even when there's no applause, no recognition, no guarantee of reward. That kind of patience can't be taught in a seminar. It's earned through the experience of falling down and getting back up. Failure also reveals your real reasons for doing what you do. When you fail, the excitement wears off. The spotlight disappears. The outside rewards vanish, and you're left with the core of your motivation. If your reasons were shallow, like approval or status, you'll probably quit. But if your reasons are rooted in purpose, in love for the work, in commitment to a bigger mission, you'll keep going. Failure tests your why. And if your why survives the test, you become unstoppable. You're no longer driven by the highs of success, but by the meaning behind your efforts. That shift in motivation changes everything. Another gift of failure is clarity. When everything falls apart, you start to see what really matters. You discover who's truly on your side. You learn what's worth fighting for and what's not. Failure strips away the noise. It simplifies your focus. It teaches you how to prioritize. When your time, energy, and resources are limited because of failure, you learn to use them wisely. You stop trying to do everything. You start doing the right things. That level of focus often becomes the turning point. It's what takes people from scattered effort to strategic execution. And once they gain that clarity, they become far more effective than before. Failure also builds empathy. When you've been through the pain of failing, when you've felt the frustration, the embarrassment, the self-doubt, you understand what others go through. You become less judgmental, more supportive, more compassionate. That emotional intelligence becomes an asset in leadership, in relationships, in teamwork. People follow those who understand them, and people trust those who've walked through the fire and come out stronger. Failure doesn't just teach you how to succeed. It teaches you how to connect, how to lead with humility, how to lift others up while still climbing. There is also a kind of creativity that is born from failure. When your original plan fails, you're forced to innovate. You can't rely on what worked before. You have to think differently. You have to look for new opportunities, new angles, new paths. Some of the most successful inventions, products, and businesses were born from failed ideas. When things don't go according to plan, your brain enters a state of problem solving. You try things you never would have considered if everything had gone smoothly. That forced creativity often leads to breakthroughs. You start to see failure not as the opposite of innovation, but as its trigger. Failure strengthens your inner voice. When you succeed, everyone wants to give you advice. Everyone wants to tell you how great you are. But when you fail, the noise dies down. You're left with yourself. And in that silence, you start to hear your own thoughts more clearly. You begin to trust your instincts. You stop living for other people's opinions. You learn to think for yourself. You learn to take responsibility, to stop blaming circumstances or people, and to own your choices. That ownership is powerful. It gives you control. It reminds you that even if you failed, you still have the power to start again. There's also a kind of gratitude that grows through failure. After you've lost something, an opportunity, a job, a relationship, you begin to appreciate what you still have. You stop taking things for granted. You notice the small wins. You become more present. That gratitude becomes a stabilizing force. It keeps you grounded when you succeed again. It reminds you that life is not just about outcomes, but about growth, connection, and character. People who've never failed often don't understand this, but those who've been through setbacks often become more grateful, more balanced, more whole. Failure also helps you build mental toughness. The ability to keep going when things go wrong, to show up even when you feel like hiding, to focus when your confidence is shaken. That's mental strength. It doesn't come from comfort. It comes from struggle. Each failure is like a weight you lift. At first, it's heavy. It hurts. But the more you lift, the stronger you get. You start to realize that failure doesn't define you. It refines you. It removes what's not serving you and reveals what's real. Over time, that toughness becomes part of you. It's what gives you the courage to dream bigger, to risk again, to rise again. Failure isn't something to avoid. It's something to study, to understand, to grow from. It's a mirror that shows you what needs work. It's a compass that points you in a better direction. It's a teacher that tells you the things success never will. The people who embrace failure, who learn from it, who use it as fuel, those are the people who rise higher, last longer, and leave something meaningful behind. They don't fear failure because they know that behind every loss is a lesson, and behind every lesson is the chance to become something greater than they were before.